What's up, world? What's up, Zion? It's Prince Easy coming at you again once more. As usual, I do have a couple slides that I want to share with you in this fine day that we're having here. And of course, before we get to those slides, I want to issue a fair use disclaimer, right, for all the copywritten material that's going to be shared in this here post. Right, so without further ado, let's dive into it, right? So, to begin with, let's read from a book, right? And it's basically Anthropology, Heritage and History, right? Peoples and Cultures of the World, right? European Colonialism, Impact, Resistance and Resilience. Demographic Collapse. Virgin soil epidemics, smallpox, measles, typhus, influenza produced mortality rates of 50 to 90% in most regions within the first century of European contact. Okay, unlike old world population with partial acquired immunity, virgin soil epidemics struck all age groups simultaneously, disproportionately, eliminating productive and reproductive active adults. In many regions, populations were depopulated by disease before the direct European military contact. The apparent ease of the Spanish conquest was substantially enabled by prior epidemic and mortality. Whatever that name is, suffered a devastating smallpox epidemics in 1520, the year before its fall. Am I saying conspiracy? Well, let's do this. Most regions there. That's all I need to prove that this is a conspiracy. You prove a pattern, a repeating pattern. Another conspiracy. They call it a revival, right? This it's not even, is it even revival, or rather it's a resurrection, right? Because the language after the Israelites were scattered everywhere, the language also went with them, right? Here in Africa and even outside of Africa, the languages were interfered with, right? Mostly, right? Let me just say that, right? Because there are some languages that have a strong continuity, right? But also with a proper demonstration of how we intervene, we intermingled, right, with other peoples and tribes from other places of the world, right? Modern Israel Hebrew differ from ancient biblical Hebrew primarily because it is a revived language. No, it is not. You cannot say. Let me get this straight. Let me ask you this, brothers and sisters. If let's say today, right, Swahili was not used anymore, right, and more than 300 years passed, and then somebody comes up, right, and picks a language that is nowhere near the original language, and he also takes components of the other language, right, the dead language, right? And of course, let's not even talk about pronunciations and right, let's not even go there, right? 80%, right? 80% of this resurrected language is a foreign language. Can we call that a revival? Is it a fair assessment? Is it an accurate assessment? Right? But this is what they say, and I'm just reading, right? It's a revived language, right? In quotation, revived, very accurate, right? Why they share the same foundational grammar and vocabulary? No, they don't. Right? Modern Hebrew was adapted for the 20th and 21st century. Again, revival, adaptation. That's a word salad right there. Do you know that they are lying? It features thousands of new words, European influence pronunciation, and simplified sentence structure. This is what they had to do in order to make this 80% Germanic language to sound more so-called Middle Eastern. They had a whole battalion to force people, right? I remember back in school, I think we were traumatized to actually hate Kiswahili. You know what they did? It's subtle, right? Psychological. First, it started with psychological operations, right? Where we literally shamed each other in school, right? Because we went in these so-called English medium schools, right? We shamed people who actually spoke Swahili, right? We shamed them, right? We looked down upon them as uneducated, right? Or less than. And then it went up a notch. This hate took up a form, right? It was a slab that you wear around your neck, right? Which says Swahili speaker, right? Basically like I don't know, a humiliation reach or something, right? And then on top of that, you get punished. If you are found with the said slab, you get punished, sticks and stuff. What do we expect to come out of that, right? From what I know, teachers, right, primary school teachers, secondary school teachers, they take psychology classes. Well, what is that supposed to do? But we're not talking about that. I'm just saying there is a parallel, right? Because they did experiments where they took this brand new baby and put it in so much isolation and told that child this fictional language to see if it would stick. These are the sick experimentation that these people were down onto, right? So these people are liars from the get-go. You can't say you understand the Bible. You can't say you understand current narratives without even acknowledging that these people are Europeans. They are not from there. Their whole thing is fake. Their names are fake. Their identity is fake. Well, just don't take up identities and get accepted like that. No. There's an angle. There's a narrative they're trying to play. Right? That's why the Bible says God himself will make them the synagogue of Satan. But you know what? These biblical scholars want to skip over that whole situation, right? Because they don't want to cause a division or something, right? They don't want to address that, right? So what do we have? The battalion of defenders of the language. Really, if that was your language spoken to you in your so-called scattering, in your rituals, really, is that what we are going for? Okay, but here they are, the battalion of defenders of the language. Hebrew. This is not Hebrew. This is 80% Germany. Okay, Yiddish. Okay, was a militant youth organization established in the 1920s in a mandatory Palestine by Jewish students from Hezria Hebrew Gymnasium in Tel Aviv. Again, they start young, right? Pounding and basically isolating them from their true cultures. And that's what they did, I think, to all Europeans, to make you malleable, to make you feasible for their projects of murder. Right? They had to make you forget all of your cultures, all of your customs, all of your values, just they want you to think yourself as new people, right? New people without it's like the reset button, you know? This is what the Americans think of themselves, right? This is why the Americans and the Jews over there in the Middle East, not Jews, the Jewish people over there, they're the same, right? Because they have this attribute about them, right? That they like, right? The people who were persecuted in England and Europe were sent to America, right? So what do? They needed a fresh start, like but for different reasons, right? But in their case, I don't know for what. They're saying persecution or this and that. Well, maybe if you stop usury and slavery, maybe people stop persecuting you and stop pursuing you, and maybe, stop with the killing of children and innocent women and innocent men. How about that? But hey, I'm just talking to the void here, am I? Right? But here they are in Tel Aviv, in mandatory Palestine, right? I don't want to even unravel what that whole thing means, right? Because I've seen some idiots who had the audacity. This chicken was sleeping here, Nick. So anyway, we are both freaked out a little bit. Me and the chicken, that is. But we are fine. Okay. So here we have. This is their language, which they say is so-called Hebrew, right? The ancient Hebrew, which they apparently resurrected, right? Yiddish historically, Judeo-German. That's right there. First of all, historically and Judeo-Germany do not belong together. Do not belong in the same sentence. They do not. They do not belong in the same sentence. Okay? And I'm not even talking about, 1,000 years ago. I'm talking about roughly 400 years ago. Things were different, right? Or Jewish German is a West Germanic language historically spoken by Ashkenazi Jews. Just end with Ashkenazi. That's the name of their tribe. Okay? And Yiddish is their language. And their land, Germany. Even English is German. So you can see they go on and on and on, right? Where it originated. But it is fictitious. Okay? So let me get this straight. Their claim to the land, fictitious. Their names are fictitious. Their language is fictitious. Their claim to the faith, fictitious. And people are still, it is what it is, I guess. Right? It is what it is. People want to believe what they want to believe at the end of the day. Right? I'm just here to present you with the facts, which are undeniable. Okay? What is Yiddish? Again, Yiddish. More and more of that merry-go-round of confusion that they have the world going through. Okay? So, they are not the people of the book. The Bantus are the people of the book. Emphasis on the people. This is what we were historically called. We were identified as so. But they got jealous, took some of our brothers and sisters into slavery in East Africa, in West Africa. Big numbers. I don't think we can even know about the numbers. Some people claim about, 400,000. Nah. It is much worse. Okay? Because this was only the formal records. Right? They were informal records. Right? Just like there are two gold markets, right? The legit gold market and the illegal gold market for everything, right? Even baby formula. The world's leading sponsor of terrorism is Iran. Is that a fact, brothers and sisters? Can we examine this statement by Secretary Rubio here? Is that true? Leading sponsor of terrorism is Iran. I say it's America. I say it's the Jewish people. Literally, you need my sources? Okay, go to the USAID listening of the, I don't know, what was it, in the Congress or something, right? When the USAID was asking about where actually they send money to. It's all to these so-called terror organizations. Look at the French just recently, right? The enemy of my enemy type logic. So they sided with the terrorists, right? The French sided with the terrorists with funding and weaponry, right? Expensive weaponry, right? This is where this whole thing falls apart, right? I've seen the weapons. I don't need no stories. I've seen the weapons. Some proper M4s, kitted out and everything. Expensive. I'm talking thousands of dollars expensive. And of course, American made. You think these people, I don't know, craft these weapons like in Minecraft in the desert with stones and stuff? They craft M4s. Can you do that? Can you go into the Sahara Desert and come out with an M4? Are you freaking serious right now? The people who are sponsors of terrorists are the people who are benefit the most from terrorism. And I don't think terrorism in any way adds to anything, to the Palestinians, to the Afrikaners, to the Iraqis, to the Libyans, to the Pakistanis, to the Indians. I don't think any of these so-called terror organizations add a benefit to them. They exist to cause war. Why? So as people can sell weapons. How do I know this? Well, you tell me. How can a war in Congo last for 30 years without resupplying? I'm talking about bullets, shells, especially bullets in the Congo. But hey, this is what he's saying, right? It's highlighted in red and everything. It's not true. If we were to be real, if we were to be honest with each other, America would be right there on top, followed by France and Germany, like all on the same level. Speaking as an African, okay? An Arab, I don't think they would say anything different than what I'm saying right now. But hey, this is what Rubio is saying. Look at what they're doing now. Yes, of course. They are holding hostage civilian vessels. Are they? And let's forget about the Middle East. Can we move to Venezuela? Perhaps Cuba? Can we say an oil tanker is a civilian vessel? Maybe, maybe not. Optics. They laid mines in international waterways. That's another lie. It's not international waters, right? Where the Israelis intercepted the flotillas and kidnapped those people, and violated them sexually, that was a violation of international waters, and you said nothing. You said nothing, completely nothing. And going back to the territorial waters of Iran, they are within Iran's territory. There are laws to this, right? You cannot just proclaim, okay? Every nation abides by these agreements. Again, agreements, right? Which we chose to comply. That this is our dry land and this is how far out to the sea our territory goes. This is well known. It has to be known so as there can be no violations. I'm just confused, and I'm having many questions, and this hypocrisy, I don't know who they're doing it for. Who are they doing it for? The people they want to drag to hell with them or something? I'm confused. 8,000 plus amid wars. And what do we get? Prodigies of the Europeans, right? The European elites and their conquests, right? We have these Arabs funneling weapons in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. And as soon as the Iran war started, the dynamic in Sudan changed and people noticed it. Like we needed more evidence. But hey, do you think that there will be no consequences for this? Do you think? In Gaza, all of that annihilation, there will be no consequences? We'll just, skip over it and just forget it? Is that what people are waiting for? The only way that happens is if you make peace. If not, well, we shall find out, won't we? Bounty on Trump for Khamenei's assassination. Iran offers bounty on Trump for assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei. This is from WION, 4 days ago. I'm not trying to paint a picture, but let's follow along. Breaking, according to the post by Donald Trump on Truth Social, a US-Iran peace agreement has been largely negotiated and could be announced soon. Trump said final details are still being discussed with the regional leaders and Israel, adding that the Strait of Hormuz will be reopened under the deal. Okay? 4 days ago, this circulating, right? And I don't believe that the Iranians put a bounty on Trump, but this is the narrative they've been painting for a really long time. Even Trump himself partook in this delusion here. Okay? Going as far as to say if I'm assassinated, then the annihilation of Iran was to follow, and I've instructed the army people to do so. This is what I'm not accusing you of anything. Literally, it's so documented in my posts that I make here. You wanna know what the King's protest is about? It's simple. Find the first time the no King's quote unquote protests happened. The first time, right? The first time, specific date. What do you do with that date? Go into my videos, right? Go into my videos and then look, what was I talking about? The day before, or literally the same day, right? Because we're in a time zone situation. You'll know what that's about. So, a new deal is on the pipeline, and the Strait of Hormuz will be opened. Right? This is some great news. Right? Will the blockade end? I don't know. Good news possible within hours, says Rubio regarding Iran talks. Right? Robert Fico describes Ukrainian drones as a European problem. Drones are a serious matter. If drones start flying over NATO members' countries, that's serious. The problem is that these are Ukrainian drones. We all know that these are Ukrainian drones, right? All of these incursions, you remember the words that I was using the other day, right? Incursions, violations, abuse. The problem is that these are Ukrainian drones. What will happen if one of these drones is a provocation and not simply an accident? Right? What is Fico trying to say? Right? He has said a lot up to this point. Okay, he has said a lot. Okay, you just have to read between the lines, right? If you're grown, you're grown. Is a provocation and not simply an accident, right? If it hits its target, an incident occurs, and then someone claims that a NATO member country has been attacked, then everyone will be called upon to join in the conflict. That would be a terrible situation. How about not going, saying no? What is this slavish mindset that is going on here? Like, this world is sick, brothers and sisters. This world is sick. Right? The way people are, I don't know, functioning and doing things and pretending like it's normal while it's abnormal and unusual and actually quite destructive. Quite destructive, right? Just like the other day. Like, I'm not throwing shades at NATO and their integrity and everything. I'm just bringing a scenario. For instance, Israel attacks Turkey. Will NATO intervene? Or will they drop Turkey? Let's play a probability game. Or how about when these fictitious, right? From the Fico, right? I'm just trying to play the devil's advocate, right? This fictitious Ukrainian drone attack that was meant to basically draw in NATO into the conflict, right? I think the Ukrainians have made their point quite clear that they want NATO to join in. They're using every means possible, right? NATO, that was denied, right, by the Americans and their fellow Europeans and such. And then they switch up gears. They want to join the EU. And back then I said, well, the EU is going to adapt a security architecture that's going to look similar to NATO, and that will be the loophole, so to speak, that the Ukrainians might exploit to basically get all of you murdered. Right? There's no other way that I could use this, right? For all of you to get murdered. Right? Don't get me wrong, you're gonna murder some Russians too, but there'll be a lot of blood, right? Like a lot of blood on that whole region, right? It will make like World War II seems like child play, you know? It will seem like child play, like seriously. So, Fico, you and NATO, how do you untangle yourself from this entanglement? because it has happened, right? You remember that that so-called drone that fell on a roof on a residential area, right? We had pictures of the said drone and it was in perfect condition and stuff. They're gonna do it. We all know they're gonna do it. The problem, or rather the bigger question is, what are you gonna do about it? Are you gonna straighten out the coked up Zelensky? He's in cocaine. Do you think he cares about? He's high on cocaine and has guns, and he's a Nazi. It's the perfect storm. You know, just like the mustache man, right? Giving drugs to his army, so as they can march, right? They put it in everything, apparently, from what I heard. What's up with this chicken, man? Anyway, that's none of our business. It's trying to figure out where they're gonna sleep. But anyway, what Fico is talking here, I'm not meaning to downplay it, but this beating around the bush is not productive. What is at stake here? Your children's lives, your nation's existence. That's what is at stake here. And I would not be beating around the bush if that was at stake. I would not be censoring myself and not addressing the people that I want to address directly. The stakes are too high and people are playing games. People are playing games with fire, right? Fire is nice. It can warm your body, right? It can help you cook. But if you put that fire in the wrong place, it consumes. Let's just say that. It consumes. So this is a EU problem. This is a NATO problem. This is a EU problem. This is a Kaja Kallas problem. This is a von der Leyen problem. Because they are losing, and that has not changed for the past 5 years. Right? All of these analysts keep talking about they haven't made a lot of progress and this and that and da. We have been following this situation for a long, long time ago, and I can tell you it's bad. Okay? It's bad. And it's gonna get dangerous. When people get exhausted, yeah, just imagine a driver, an exhausted driver. What follows? Tragedy. Just apply exhaustion to anything that pertains to productivity, and disaster is inevitable. I'm not saying the Russians are getting tired of anything, no. But you're pushing them to be lazy, right? You're pushing them to be, I don't know, unconcerned. Right? People think that this push for Russia to finish this whole situation faster. Really think about it. Right? Because these people have launched a global campaign. Right? These European elites have launched a global campaign. Right? Of attacking people and taking their stuff. That's like politics for idiots. Right? You remember those books? So and so for dummies. But at this point, you'll be an idiot. Right? Dummies like too innocent. So they want to take over Russia and take their stuff, right? We know this. We've been knowing this. They want to take over the AES to take their stuff. They want to take over Cuba to take over their stuff. They want to take over Venezuela to take their stuff. They are targeting Guatemala to take their stuff there. This hoarding mentality, this, I can't even call it a survival instinct, you know. I once saw this video of hundreds of Chinese vessels, and they were talking about these vessels were flooding a certain region that was international waters, but really their activity there would affect the territory of a nearby country. And he went on into reasoning about, you know, what happened to China and their hunger and how that affected them psychologically, and it made sense, you know. But again, ability to change, adaptation is the key to survival, not accumulation, right? Not accumulation. You're just putting a target on your back. Right? These tech bros think they're too smart, they're too rock star, right? Walking around with these 200 billion, right? 100 billion, 50 billion, right? Walking around broke people, poor people, and you think that it's gonna be fine? It's not. It's not gonna be fine. I'ma just say that. It's not gonna be fine. These people will eat you alive, just like in the scripture says, right? And I forgot something. Right before the chicken distracted me, I was making a point, right? I've seen these so-called analysts, right, that say, first and foremost, the Palestinians say the Palestinian people do not exist. They are fictitious, right? And I understand, right? The so-called Arab is a mixture, right? It's a mixture, just like their location. It was a meeting point of the world, right? People from North and South America, people from Europe, right? What is now called Europe, and people from Eastern Asia met over there, and especially Africans. That's what they found us there. We established everything over there, including that land now is called Jerusalem. We were there, and it was a booming city, right? Not dominated by the garbage that we see today, but rather just business and people treating each other humanely. You dig? And then, of course, at one point, somebody got greedy. That's the same story even with East Africa, right? Go in the island of Kilwa. That would be the Portuguese who wanted to control the sea routes headed to China and India. Guess what happened? They do this historically, right? At this point, it's just like DNA, right? And if they don't un-DNA themselves out of this garbage, then we're going to have a problem. But hey, let's go into the Bible, right? The Palestinian people did not exist. The people shall hear and be afraid. Shall take hold of the inhabitants of Palestina, right? It is written even in more like Bantu, not Palestine, right? That is the Ein, yeah, German, right? But it's Palestina. This is how we light it in Swahili, in Bantu, right? Rejoice not thou, whole Palestine, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken. For out of the serpent's root shall come forth a cockatrice, and his fruit shall be a fiery flying serpent. This is pertaining to the prophecies of what is happening now, right? What is the root of the serpent? I never heard that in catechism. They just skip that, right? Maybe they want me to intermingle with the seed of the serpent. I don't know, right? Hole or gate, Cry, O city, though whole Palestina art dissolved, for there shall come forth from the north a smoke, and none shall be alone in his appointed times. Right? Forces from the north. Every peoples have a story about this, right? Ask the Chinese, they'll tell you, right? That people from the north, the people is dangerous. Right? Ask the Arabs, they'll tell you the same thing. People from the north are freaking bad. Ask the Africans. I'm not trying to establish pattern or anything like that, but I'm just giving concrete information. Why is it the north always? So again, the Palestinian state is fictitious, right? And when they say Gates or the people of Palestina, maybe some other people, right? Some other people. We're talking about, I don't know, Germans or something, you know. So, back to FICO. Handle business. Okay? Handle business. When these missiles start flying, it's pretty hard to put a stop to them, right? Because there are some individuals who are professional at cutting wood and throwing it into that, just providing fuel to the whole ordeal. Right? They love it. So I would recommend you solve this whole situation quick for your safety and your people's safety. Right? Forget about NATO and right, it's a lost cause at this point. Right? This idea cannot protect you. Right? Cannot protect you. It can't. US-Iran negotiations. Israel voices concern over possible deal. But we just read here, right? Oh, Trump said the final details is being discussed with regional leaders in Israel, adding that the Strait of Hormuz will be reopened under the deal. So then, what is their concern exactly? Of a possible deal, right? There are alarms, apparently. There are alarms blazing, right? As the war is about to stop. They are afraid of the war stopping. The Ukrainians are afraid of the war stopping. Why? This is what Sky News, right? I have to, again, these vile medias, right? This is a vile, right? I don't use that word, but Sky News is a vile, toxic. Right? It might just kill you by listening to it. Trump-Iran deal is a placeholder to buy time on nuclear talks. So what is your desire, to be precise? Sky News. And of course, the same day that this is all happening, I hear that there's been a shooting near the White House and the perpetrator has been taken out, and President Trump was rushed to the bunker. I'm not saying they are connected. But it is what it is, I guess, you know. Right? This world is full of convenient plot devices and stuff. Anyway, let me not blabber on forever. I'm gonna put a pin on it. right there. Right? I'm just here to show you what's what. And we're gonna see each other when we see each other. Prince Easy signing out. Love you. Bye.